Welcome to the Mind is Psychic, where we talk music, addiction, comedy, culture. If you like this content, please leave feedback and subscribe. Let's get into it. On today's episode, I want to discuss toxicity. And I don't mean toxicity in the realm of asbestos, water, environmental toxicity. I mean it in a toxic environment within personal relationships, work, family, and so forth, and what that causes to one's psyche and to one's personal improvement, development, and so on. So let's get into it. At one time or another, all of us, or the majority of us, have had toxic relationships. Now, what is a toxic relationship? I mean, I could give the definition, but I don't need to. I believe we all know what's going on. I believe that we all know what the definition of it is, and I believe we all have a personal definition of what it is. Now, to me, I'm going to give an example for toxic relationships. And I mean this in like a romantic relationship. I mean this in a family relationship. I mean this as a coworker relationship. I mean this is in friend relationships, all over. It goes through, I'll go through the gamut of all different types of toxicity, the traits in people, and how you would get to a certain point of understanding and how to prevent that. At the end of the day, we all know about snakes. We all know about people taking energy away and people wanting to be feeding off of people. And this could start early. I mean, as a kid, there's toxic relationships when you have friends as adolescents, not really knowing at that point what it is because you're still growing. The point is, the amount of toxicity has increased exponentially, especially in the last 10 years since the skyrocketing popularity of social media. I'm talking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I come from the generation of dial-up internet and Facebook, and the OG, which I think is better than all the platforms combined, MySpace. But Tom needed to sell, so we ended up with all of that. I mean, don't you think that we should have top 10 or top 8 friends on our Facebook page? I mean, that would be dope. I think bringing that back would be awesome, because that could mean who's on your shit list, who you're liking at this point, who you find interesting. Because back in the day, and I'm talking to all the people my age, if those millennials, if you know, if you know that you're going to someone's page and your best friends, let's just say that, you get into this and just roll with me, guys, for a minute, because I'm going to get into toxic traits and everything. On MySpace, you have the top 8, and we all had our best friends or the people we cared about, usually our family, depending on our family situation and dynamics. We never really exactly had, depending on the family dynamics, a lot of us did not have our type 8, especially as teenagers and as in early 20s. Our family, we wanted to think we were cool, and we had all of our friends or, stuff like that. Not saying our family wasn't on our MySpace page, but anyway, that was a correlation. You could figure out if you piss someone off, your friend, if you would go and, we were catty, we were petty, we were, all of this. It's one of those things where one day you wake up and you're checking your MySpace, you're doing your scroll, you're picking your favorite template for the day, for the week, whatever. And you notice, you go to your best friend's page or you go to a buddy's page, You notice she went from number 3 to number 7, and you're like, what is this? What's going on? Like, I never figured out until later, only really petty people would demonstrate that on socials at the infancy of that. Most of the time, it was just, okay, either you really don't care about it and you just whoever, and these are the type of people that like didn't customize their page. This would be like Tom being your number one friend, and you would have to take him off, or Adam, you could, just throw him to the on number 9, any of that. So that's the I want to set that as like a foundation, so to speak, of how even during that time, all for it. I actually give you credit because that takes a lot of energy and that takes a lot of balls. That takes a lot of courage to do that. But like I said, 90% of these people on the internet, they're in their mommy or daddy's basement thinking that they're freaking Superman. We call them, what is it? Keyboard warriors. Dude, you're ordering pizza from DoorDash. You're in your freaking, you're in your you're 60 years old in your Elmo Sesame Street shirt. Hey, I love Sesame Street. Don't get you, I'm not messing with Sesame Street. What I'm saying is there's a type of person out there, and we all know who they are, that they like to talk shit because they know that nobody's gonna know it's not gonna affect them in the real life. They can turn off that, they can power down that machine, they can log off of that platform, they can do whatever is necessary because they can be 3,000 miles away, they can be 10,000 miles away, and they feel they're in the clear. Now, no. Now, I think a piece of shit can turn into a good person. I think there are times when you can learn from your mistakes. It may take longer, but I believe you can. And I also believe that over time, and I think most of us would agree that time is most effective, the length of time as you grow, because you start to learn about yourself, especially like recovering addicts. We start to learn and understand, getting different point of views and realizing what a piece of shit they were. They were the piece of shits and they acted like a piece of shit to their friends, their families, sometimes willingly, sometimes they were out of their gourd and they didn't know. But you're still putting toxicity onto people, onto your family, onto your kids, onto your significant other, onto your friends, onto strangers even. Now, first impressions, you know, I don't know how much, I mean, I would still consider first impressions when going out to eat and drinking. Let's just say, for instance, there shouldn't be judgment if you're going out with buddies and everybody's inebriated. That shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a judgment of, meaning if somebody said something to you that was asinine, take it with a grain of salt because they were just being a butthead, most likely, or they weren't, but whatever. But don't let it affect your life. That's the stupid kind of toxicity that we can just walk away from. First time meeting this dude, I don't give a crap. Like, there's people that go on dates and they don't find the right girl until like number 10,006, or the right guy until 10,011. Any different thing. Maybe the person, they did feel that toxic energy or some sort of something like that. But with these toxic things, at the end, you're only yourself. You feel you need to live, you need to survive. You need to step back maybe, because let me tell you, it hurts and it takes an emotional toll when you realize that the toxic person in your life, when you finally realize that, especially for a long-term friendship, man, you start to get sober, or you start to get in realization that this person isn't who you thought they were. you got to worry about yourself. You've got to worry about your soul, your brain, your physicality, your life. You need that boundary. If they don't get it, you could give them 15 times. And I will say one thing real quick is that I never there are people out there that I've never directly, which I should have directly handled it like a man. And maybe one day I will. But I also think you got to be ready, especially after a significant time away from this person without talking and stuff. It gets to a point where I hate to say this, it's not as important in your life. You move on, that person moves on. The toxicity leaves. It's now that you're not in their orbit, you don't feel it as much. And that's why I think that time is so significant in that. And I truly believe that people can recover, meaning they can change. We all have struggles. Some of us change, some of us are able to, some of us need help. Some of us, they take feedback really well, or some just need to, it hits them one day, whatever. But it's the same way of you hit that relationship, that duration, and you're like, wow, that's interesting. I never thought of it like that. And then you let that time pass, and then you're like, you know what? Maybe I didn't exactly maybe I didn't figure and deal with the situation or the person like I should have, Like instead of just talking to them and saying my feelings and just ignoring the person, nah. You know what? But people move on. And like I said about that sermon a while back, earlier in the episode, about some people aren't meant to be in your life forever. Some people are there to show you, like, shoot, that person showed his true colors, or that person negatively gave you the strength to get out of that relationship. And you kind of got to give him credit in a little bit of ways, because it took time, but you were able to figure it out. You were able to be like, oh shoot, I get this. That Debo is off your shoulder now. You can put back on that gold chain. You know what I mean? You can keep that boombox. Your Pinto, it's fresh. It's got those 13s on it and that slick paint job, because it went with time and you dealt with it. Or you don't deal with it and you let time go, and you can reassess. You can figure it out. You can love it. You can just understand, okay, maybe it's time after all these years. I'm the worst critic, I am my worst critic. I mean, I can give all the advice in the world to people, whether they take it, whether they don't, whatever. But I know better. I think most of us know better, because we can be toxic to ourselves, right? We can feel, at the end of the day, we are covering up, or we become more toxic when we're addicts, right? Because we're taking substances, we're eating, we're doing, we're shopping, we're doing some type of addictive thing that is toxic to yourself, to others, people in your area. And that means in the community even. So just feel free to take all this with a grain of salt, but none of us are perfect. And feeling good about yourself. I love the example I always give. Oh, have you been drinking today? Stumbling in. No, no. And to see the infancy of the toxicity on the internet, and how petty and ununderstanding of relationships could get. You got the messages then. Now, even going back a few years before that, AOL Instant Messenger, that was the goat of stuff starting to go downhill with the internet and social media. As much as the internet and all this technology and everything like that has improved life, it has also hindered us as a society and individuals that don't know how to live in the real life and they live in these fantasies of the internet, of social media, they start to take their avatars' way of thinking into real life, and that to me, I believe, was the birth of trolling. And, over the years during the aughts, it just started to increase and increase and increase to the time of people just bullying other people just for the fun of it, or start posting stuff about friends or family members instead of leaving people and communicating. And I'm talking with like close knit, even acquaintances, family, friends. I'm talking with that kind of relationship. There should be communication 100%. And I mean direct communication. I mean sit downs. I mean, I would use, and this is me in the past, I would always use like I statements sometimes. I'm not saying always, which means basically this is how you make me, I feel, focusing on their actions and how they make you feel. You're you're basically telling them your perspective, and you're not going into the whole blaming game, and you're trying to have a middle ground. The issue though with, let's say, just random people on the internet, you're not going to have these direct communications. You're not going to have people that are just, you're going to have those people that are bullies. You're going to have those trolls. You're going to have people that just want to hurt other people because they're behind a monitor. They would never do this in real life. They think they're a baller and they think they're tough on the internet, but in real life, they would never confront you. They wouldn't they would go as far as creating dummy accounts, so they try to think that it won't be traced back to them, but techies know better, and they'll be flushed out. Having common sense will really help with this, especially as you grow older and everything. And I'm gonna start getting into why I think that that's toxic for the overall human race, because it's one of those things that we've let it just go out of control. I mean, people hurt themselves over this toxicity, this bullying, and sometimes it's strangers, and sometimes it's friends that just flip. I mean, I get it as kids. Sometimes we gang up on our other friends in a group, and we, mess around with one kid or everything like that. I mean, it's happened to me. I was young. It was it was upsetting as a kid, but dude, we were kids. We were just being dumbasses. And as you grow older and you grow wiser and you grow more understanding, you feel what the world's all about, you get your footing, you get to know that it was just people going through their lives. And they thought they felt better by making other people feel like shit, which, and some people didn't grow out of it. And that's why they're being toxic on the internet. That's why they're stating stuff that probably isn't true, or that they can't talk about in real life because they have no self-esteem. They have no commitment to change. They have no reasons to get better. And some people just want to be fucks for no reason. Some people just want to be mean, and that's their behavior, that's their status in life. Some people fly off the handle for the simple fact of they get upset. They don't know how to deal with their anger. They don't know how to figure things out. They don't know how to work on their anxiety. And we get to feel that probably we start we really get to know what anxiety is probably 14, 16, maybe younger. You get that feeling in your stomach and you just start. I mean, and this is, I'm going to give you my example. That's basically when I started feeling anxious and having those toxic relationships, you don't know necessarily at the beginning, at even until the end, how toxic relationships can be. And what I mean by that is there are people out there, and I'm talking friends, that they will turn their back on you as quick as you can think. One day you're cool with them, the next day they don't know who you are. Now, I've been very blessed. I've always kept a very small circle. I don't have friends. I have what I consider family. I can name all of my closest friends on my two hands. So I've always had a trust issue because of previous growing up with toxic people and not knowing they were toxic. Like some people just want to use you. And I'm using that as an a realm of the toxicity bubble. Meaning, if I would say this as an analogy or an example of, let's say you have a holding company, let's say Toxic Incorporated, then the subsidiary would be like friendships, family. Then you have snakes, friends that are snakes, friends that are trying to get you, and all of that sort of thing. They try to take advantage of you because they think you're weak. This probably wasn't the best example, but I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm just thinking and I'm trying to explain how my mind works and how I contemplate and how I can rationalize the steps and the way it goes. And then you have the friends, of course, that use you. With you, they're so good at manipulation and fakery, they don't even know. I'm sorry, you don't even know. You think they're being cool, but in real life, they're talking all types of things about you. They're lying, they're doing all of that. And is it really worth it for the non-friendship base, meaning just not even, I mean, to step back from even acquaintances? Is it even worth it to feel their negative, toxic energy? Is it even worth it to work it out? And I mean, the people maybe you say, let's say for the internet, for instance, you're most likely not going to meet these people. You could give two shits about these people, and they're just spewing all this hatred, all this negativity because they feel deep down like pieces of shit. They have a bad life, so they want to put it on somebody else so they think they feel better, but they really don't. It makes them feel worse. They can say it until the cows come home that it makes them feel better, but it doesn't. They're just an ugly person that has an ugly soul. And they don't, like I said before, they don't, number one, care, number one, understand, even if they're smart enough to grasp what they're doing. And then, of course, you've got the experts in that would do anything they can to get what they want and get ahead. I'm going to go back to the toxic relationships. Once you're realizing that, hey, this person is very toxic for me. Now, he could be great for other people. I was listening to a Hobson song, and the last minute was just, it sounded like a pastor talking, and he was giving advice. And one of the things he said was, some people are meant to go into your life and go out. Some people are meant for them to stay. Some people are there for 5 years. Now, not and it's that he also said not everybody's there for the long term. And it really got me thinking. I've listened to this song for years. It's the Hobson. He came out with like a series of songs over the years. And the songs, I'm going to pull it up right now because I think this is, and it's okay. So it was called The Ill Mind of Hobson. It was a series over probably like a decade, maybe even longer, of just awesome songs. He was talking about everything that affected him, all of his personal relationships, all of his business relationships, and how people, as he feel, people have screwed him and all of that. So it was a whole series of years of just him doing bar to bar, just gold. And I believe this was on either Ill Mind of Hobson 5? No, 7? And I'm sorry, actually, it stems back, the series goes all the way back to 2006, actually before 2006. So I'm messing up my years, but he's been doing it for a while. And this one came out, I believe, in like 2016. So maybe it was 8, The Ill Mind of Hobson 8. So what I'm saying is that he was talking about how his business manager, the owner of his record label or partner, or how whatever, basically was everything about the company. He was the accountant, he was the business manager, he was the tour manager, he was the producer. So, altogether, he had 5 different titles. So, and each title gets a percentage, right? So he was like taking, and this is a indie label. So he was taking X amount of percentages off of everything per artist. There was probably like 5 or 6 artists. I'm not really sure. I'm just naming, I can just think of probably at least 3, being Jared Benton, being Hobson as the front runner, Swizz, others probably. But anyways, so before Hobson started, after Hobson started his Prodigy label, when he did that, he came out with the Ill Mind of Hobson 8. And that's where that, at the end of the song, that's where that, little sermon, I guess you would call it. But it really, it has always stuck with me. And I mean, it has always stuck with me when it got, when I felt bad and I needed to listen to something. It gave me clarity, because nobody, I believe, wants to lose friendships, especially in business relationships after you gain the trust and work on the relationships. Nobody wants to, it would be like working your butt off for your business and it all of a sudden going down the road, it goes bankrupt for either your fault or others being involved. You don't want to lose. You don't want that. But sometimes you need to have that talk and that self-reliance, that self-reflection of this person's bad for me. He may not be bad for somebody else. And I don't wish you any ill will, but people grow. And as you grow, you learn, you educate yourselves, you figure out, you're like, this person who I thought was my dearest of friends turned out to be a total snake and turned out to just not give a shit about your feelings. And this is after 16-year friendship. And this happens to a lot of people. This happens to a lot of people. Some wake up and understand it. And as an outsider, let's just say a friend group, they, the friends, they stop hanging out. They stop doing a lot of things with that individual. But then you want to be friends with everyone and you don't see through them because you're so, I'm not going to say enamored, but you think you're so connected to this person. And all you want to do is hang out with this person, almost to a codependency friendship almost. I I know that's not healthy, but let me tell you, after just thinking about it, I think you can be codependent on friends, especially if you cluster yourself with them, especially if you cluster yourself with them and you feel a sort of way that, and you hang out with them. What I'm getting at is there's no set duration that you're all of a sudden wake up and figure it out. It's not after the first, it's not after the second, it's not after the third. It could be 50 things later that you figure out, oh, this dude's been a fake our entire friendship. This goes into relationships romantic relationships as well. You think of this person early on as one thing, and then you grow, as we all do. You either you mature faster than your counterpart or somebody like that. You grow out of it and you need somebody that's more compatible to you. And that goes the same way with friends. With that being said, toxicity toxicity with the social media and everything, especially nowadays in 2025, people just will come out now and encourage other people on the internet, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, to do really heinous things to strangers that they have never met, that they've only heard about on the internet. They've never had a personal connection to this person. These people are just so diabolical. Like, what is going on in their head that they think it's okay? Okay, putting someone on blast is one thing, and talking shit on the internet is one thing, but when you go to the umpth degree and to the extreme by saying you should do this to no longer be on the planet, and they're saying it to their subscribers that you need to go out and do this to police or you need to do that. What in their freaking mind? Well, I know they're nuts. And I don't mean like a good type of nuts. I mean, these are sociopaths, psychopaths, and evil Satanists that would go to that extreme. Now, even if you would say that in like a common conversation with someone, that should number one be a no-no. But if you go out and that's hate speech 100%. That is 100% hate speech, and it should be somebody should be charged and sent to prison for that at the bare minimum. Anyway, that's the toxicity I wanted to get into of the internet trolls. And I would personally like if I would get like any backlash or something from years before, and I would have read comments like, if anybody commented on my stuff years before, I would have got now I laugh. And I always like if somebody like posts on a comment on my feed or something, I would go ahead. I think any comment for me, unless it's like a harmful comment that, somebody should no longer be on the planet or something. And we all know, I don't have to say the words. We all know what that is. We should definitely put those people out on blast. And I mean, put those people in the news, put those people, and I mean, put these individuals like share their TikToks. And what I guess, how am I going to say this? Maybe let me retract that a little because that's just egging them on for them to get more views. What I mean is putting them on blast so they don't do it again because it's so heinous. Just like swatting's going on, dangerous, dangerous stuff. You can talk all you want on the internet. I get it. In between you and your friends, you can imply certain things, but not everybody that 99% of these people don't know you. They don't know if you're joking. They don't know the inner circles of your mind. Now, wait, just think about it for a second. Think about it for a second. Why are they trying to do this? Why are they trying to put that energy out there? We know why, because they hate themselves and they hate certain things. And until we get these toxicity is always going to be there. Bullying is always going to be there, unfortunately. But growing and preventing these people and giving them no room to get big and to get their message out is the best thing. Let me go back to the comments. Now, like I said, if I would have got a comment even 5 years ago, I would have taken it personal. Now, when I get comments, the very few I get on social media with, certain things, I would say 80 of them, 80% of them are, good natured compliments. Others are 5% are just people trolling. And then what are we at? 85 and another 15% criticizing and maybe even offering feedback. Now, this has been on my my purview, my level, my I know I'm using these words. I'm trying to sound smart, but they're not coming out as I'm not coming out as intellectual at all because I'm really not. Words in my I think a word and then it's very difficult for me to get it out my mouth. So, yeah, it's crazy that anyway, these people, and I mean this from the heart, we need to these toxic people, we need to turn that toxicity into learning experiences and ways to learn from doing it next time. Because it'll only get worse and worse if they're letting it get if they just let it go, if they keep on if we keep on giving these people passes, they're just gonna get more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. And we've seen this, especially in the last 5 or 6 years of either people don't care, they think they're better than others, but what how are these people how would these people be you wanna go up to somebody, let's say, at a grocery store and start talking defamatory stuff to them or being rude. Well, yeah, you would. You could be rude. I don't have an issue with that. Someone cut you off. I wouldn't advise, especially in Arizona, flipping people off. I wouldn't advise that anywhere. It's I think beneath both people, everybody. But we get, we're driving. We get it. It happens. It's not meant in that situation, in that action. I don't necessarily think it's towards that individual, especially during driving. It was somebody got upset for a quick moment and they flipped them the bird. It happens. Or they tell them that they drive for shit, whatever. Okay. Well, the whole thing about it is as you grow, you figure out, okay, those actions probably weren't the best. Now, when you finally realize that in your adulthood and in your some people earlier, some people later, we figure out this toxicity and it could be short term, like literally it happens over, a period of one thing, like of course being cut off somebody or somebody trying to cut in front of you in line at like a store. Most of the time it's not meant that person just being a butthead or they need to they think they were first or whatever. They thought they maybe were superior. Who knows? There's all of these different levels and reasons of thinking of why somebody would do it. Maybe they're super busy and they're in a time crunch and whatever. That's not that big of a deal. And that's really what I'm talking about is that's human nature. But being straight up toxic and then environment and giving that off to the world, that can't continue to happen. I'm not saying we all need to be unicorn farts and love each other singing kumbaya to every single one of people you run into. That's not life. But what is life is at least if you screw up and you truly mean and truly feel sorry, state it. If you lash out at somebody, like let's say a friend, let them know like, hey, I was in a bad spot. I overreacted. I checked myself. And if they want to continue that friendship, cool. If not, you know, that's understandable why they don't, or they see a pattern. They see you doing that quite often. And then you have some dope friends that just understand that you're bipolar and you just go off without a hitch. And you guys know who you are. You friends in high school know who you are. And I'll love you dearly for the rest of your lives for always sticking by me. But years later, now I can laugh about it, and now that I'm still nuts, no doubt. I'll always be nuts, but I'm regulated now. Damn near 40. Yeah, I just turned last month, about 30 days ago, I turned 39. And boy, let me tell you something real quick on a different subject. My receding hairline, I'm letting my hair grow out right now just for the simple fact of I've actually been too lazy to shave it, because that's usually what I do. I shave it bald because I've been my hair has been receding since I was 18. And the funny thing about it is I remember my grandma and my uncles, I remember when I turned 18, my uncle's like, I know what they told me at 16. They're like, on your 18th birthday, we know what we're getting you. And these were my uncles. They're like, we're getting you Rogan. And I'm like, dude, shut up. Just because you guys went bald, I'm not going bald. Okay. I've got to say real quick, listen to your elders. If it's not illegal or you find it amoral or immoral, listen to the people, listen to the older folks, because they have, especially like your grandparents, man, they have so much wisdom that if you could get in a time machine and go back and spend the time just listening to these individuals, they just knew that most of them knew what the world. And I'm not saying that they were intuitive. They were to some extent, but they weren't like psychic as they grew, they lived a long life. So they've seen all of these different situations. And what I'm getting with is don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what my grandma would always say. My great aunt would always say in finances. Don't depend on the government, stuff like that, because she comes from the depression era where they didn't have anything. They lost, all of that. They were one of those that she was she was what, 16 and 33? 16 and 33. So she was fairly aware of it was still early in her life, but that's how so her and my great uncle, grandfather, whatever, however you want to categorically name it, that's they had that life. They figured, and they didn't make millions of dollars a year. They were just strong, hardworking people. And what I'm getting with this is listen to them. When they also say treat people with respect, treat people with treat people how you want to be treated. Wow. That if you could take one thing from an older experienced in life person that has just worked their butt off, have been through life, have understood it, have learned, have failed, have succeeded, have just done just by living for, let's say, 80 years, the amount you've experienced and how successful are you as a person if you've lived that long and you've actually like you're retired. And I'm not saying rich or poor. I'm just saying if you've lived through those experiences and you're not, let's say, in prison necessarily, our grandmas and grandpas, stuff like that. Listen to these people. Listen to your aunts and uncles, even. Listen to, as the hip hop world, as Snoop Dogg says, listen to your unks. What the meaning I get from that is listen to the older people around you. Get it life advice from them. Understand who they are. Listen to them and listen like syllable by syllable what they're talking about. Because it may not at that moment, it may as a younger person, it may not make sense at that time. But that'll come back around and you'll be like, Lord. So I'm getting back to with my uncles about the um, the receding hairline. So that's why I didn't cut That's why actually I took it. I did it so I could take a picture and show my buddy because he's always complaining about, his hair is like a part of him. And, I get it. Hair to me, I could just shave it. I don't care. I'm one of those fortunate people that I look decent with a bald shaved head. So I don't mind it. I like the way I look. Some people can't pull it off. Some people look better with, a bald head, shaved face, whatever floats your boat. But they knew basically my uncles knew because they were bald from that time and it's hereditary. I didn't know, even though my dad his hair was receding. I mean, but he did a ponytail, whatever. So going back off this 10-minute tangent and getting back to the toxic traits, this little last segment, what I want to talk about is how to recognize it. First, let's say you care about these people. They're dear friends, they're family. You want maybe there's a misunderstanding of something of the toxic trait. Let's just say, for instance, these are somebody that you care about, not these freaking internet trolls that just talk. They don't just talk. You know what? Let them just talk, do whatever. I'm talking about the people that you care about. Honestly, don't sugarcoat this. Confront them, not in a combative, argumentative way. Address them, like, as I mentioned in the beginning, address their behavior, like how you feel as I feel about how you said this and how I feel about it. You're showing that you're telling them how you feel and your feelings about this particular situation, this conversation, or their actions. You just talk to them. Honestly, you just talk to them and be honest. Look them in their eyes, call them on the phone. I would say if they're close to you, you're going to talk to them on the phone, FaceTime, in person, whatever. But just be like, tell them like, hey, I don't really want to bring this up because it's kind of uncomfortable, but you kind of did something. And I don't want you to think I'm blaming you and this was on you. This is just my feelings and just bring it up because I want to say, honestly, 6 out of 10 times. Now, my numbers, I'm not a math genius and percentage genius, but I'm just as I would say most of the time they're just having a bad day, something really personal that they haven't talked about yet. They're just, steaming and they're taking it out on people. And sometimes they're running through life with their focusers on, with their peripheral vision and just going straight ahead for their goal. And they're not realizing that they're upsetting someone or that a particular word or sentence upsets you. But I think in a positive relationship, that should be brought up. There should be no sugarcoating. There should not be any sugarcoating. And I think a few people for not sugarcoating it and being real. I thought for years that some people didn't like me because they would tell me like it is. But in fact, they were just trying to help out. And that was their way of helping out. So it's kind of interesting, but it takes that time to think about it and being like, they didn't hate you. They were upset or angry with you or irritated, but they did it because they love you and they care about you. It's not in the moment you're thinking that you're thinking that you're just this big piece of shit and they're just trying to belittle you. On the contrary, guys, they're trying to give their perspective to you and what they see from an outside view. It's not bad. It's for that short time. It's awkward. It's anxiety driven. It's all you have all these emotions, especially if they try to do an intervention, which I've had them before. There's been interventions on me. They didn't go anywhere. It just made it worse. It was out of the goodness of their hearts and trying to help people. And to this day, after years, I respect them more for trying to do their best and sitting me down and fixing it and trying to help. But at that time, at that part, I was the toxic person within myself. I didn't care enough. It was one ear out the other. And it's not them being intimidating. It's not them just, so it's meant to be uncomfortable. Now, what I mean is interventions. I don't think if it's their time to vent to you, but for you to vent and understand those feelings and everything, you have to be ready for yourself to move on, to change and everything like that, to get to that next step. So that's why I don't think they work. They're, I believe they're good. They're a good idea in the base and foundation of a group of people trying to help and explain, like, hey, doing the whole I statement. This, when you do this action, this is how I feel. I understand that point, but a lot of people, they're not going to be ready to change until they're ready, or they don't change at all. They never want to change. They feel they've given up, or they just feel that they don't care, that they don't have the strength at that moment, or ever, maybe ever. Maybe they've never contemplated getting better or finding themselves in a different path. Not everybody has that. And a lot of people don't have people that even care for them enough. All they have is toxic relationships, friendships, maybe the toxic relationship of, let's just say, for instance, like you were a drug addict. A toxic relationship is your drug addict, or is your drug dealer. And I'm not, and I guess, well, you could say going to the doctor for fake pain and the doctor prescribing you opioids, benzos, would kind of be like a drug dealer in a way. You can shoot me in the comments. That's cool. I'm cool. All engagements important. All engagements are important. But what I'm saying is those are really, those are the extreme friendships that you don't want. They're money-based, business-based relationships, and they may be kind to you in face, but they're trying to sell their products. Just like, you know, an insurance salesman or a real estate agent trying to get that sale. They're trying to get that 6 to 8% to feed their family. So I know I shouldn't be connecting real estate agents and, pharmacists and doctors to, actual drug dealers. But in a way, anyway, it's sales no matter what, except drug dealers really don't have to market. So with that being said, that's a toxic situation. Not a friendship, a relationship of some sort, a business transaction relationship, whatever you call it. But that's toxic. Not being honest to people around you. Oh, here's another one. Transitioning from lying and being an habitual liar just for the simple fact of you're scared to tell the truth. Let's say, for instance, I'm going to give two examples. Maybe you're the type of person that lies. That is toxic in its own way. And let me get that, because I think toxicity is anything that hurts, that is either, it could be by the person that's exhibiting that, could be unknowing, or it can be for various reasons. So it could be actually on purpose, or it could be just you're anxious, you're scared to tell the truth. So you make up some stupid lie. And there's a lot of human lie detectors. And some people, myself included, would fucking lie about the stupidest shit. No, I haven't been drinking. Well, you smell like a brewery. I know I've said this in my last episodes, but that's why I bring it up, because that's toxicity to me, of lying. Don't lie. White lies, okay. sometimes I know I'm being hypocritical right now, but there are various ways, there's various levels of lying. Lying to Congress, you're going to jail. Lying to the, that kind of lying, getting caught in a lie, and I mean like a major lie, that's not, that's the top tier of lying. I mean, saying stuff like, what's a good example of, I've used this excuse before, this lie. How, what do you think of this? They're asking you a question and you don't want to hurt their feelings, so you lie to them. Okay, it basically, let me give you the example of, you have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, and they ask, it's the whole, do I look fat in this? Does this makeup, how does my makeup look? Whatever. You don't want to hurt their feelings, so you lie. So that's like the little white lie that you don't think, And then there's the lies that you're so embarrassed about because you're so ashamed that you lie because you're scared and you don't want people to judge you on the mistakes that you've made. So you just come up with this stupid little lie. And then there's people up there, I would say that would probably be like a number 4 out of a 10. The one is like lying about hurting someone in a physical manner. You guys all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, doing the lying, and I really don't, if it doesn't come out of your mouth, basically omitting something, is it really a lie? That's a good question. If you could give me I want to get your opinions on omitting lies, lying, it's a lie, but you never said it, lying by omission. There we go. See, with these words, I have issues with these words sometimes. But that you get the fact, right? You get the idea of what I'm saying. Just be honest. Just I just got to say, as someone who's lived years and years of doing stupid shit, lying over the stupidest shit, just be honest. People know that you're full of shit. You can't always fake it. Yeah, you can fake it until you make it, until you are just fake. Just don't be toxic. Or like I said, do the I statement. Be upfront, no sugarcoating. You don't have to tell them that they're pieces of shit because they did one thing or the other, or they did a particular thing and you felt bad. Just tell them, be like, the I statement. Set those boundaries. And worst comes to worst, end that relationship. Businesses do it all the time. They find different distributors, they find different contractors. It's kind of similar in a way. You have toxic business partners. You get out of odds. You're going to sometimes maybe not understand it at first. You're going to get, eventually you're either figure it out, you go broke and you figure out that they're embezzling, whatever, you end it. So why shouldn't that be said for friendships and relationships? You're not happy with the person? Okay. Give them the first benefit of the doubt. Talk to them. Or if they're small, minute things like they're not taking the trash out, stuff like that. I mean, in a relationship, you know, talk to them, because odds are, especially if you're a dude, odds are we're not going to figure it out. We're probably going to have to be told. Most of the time, we're probably going to have to be told from a significant other to do shit. I'll walk past shit and I'll be like, okay, whatever, because it doesn't bug me, but it may affect somebody else a different way. So just be honest, have a conversation. And at worst, unfortunately, even after years, people have been friends for 50 years that they had to finally end that relationship. Well, it hurt. It's hard, but you want to do it depending on the level. Like I said, the benefit of the doubt, you want to see if they can change their behavior first. Then if they don't, or it escalates into, some type of harm or things that you feel unsafe with, that would be, or you don't feel safe with them because they protrude onto you what they feel and their surroundings, and then you are now in danger and they've put your life in danger. So that may be an instance where ending that relationship, as much as you like or love that person, you got to worry about yourself and your soul and how you can move on feeling the best you can. It's hard. We know it is hard. It's scary to a lot of people like myself. it's hard talking to people. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard. It's easier just to go around than to go right up to it, be considerate, and explain your thoughts. Maybe for some people, they can just go straight through like a freight train and just be blunt. And that's why I have people in my life that are very blunt. And that's what I love about them, is because call me a wuss. I want everybody to be happy and nice. That's not life. I get it, but I'm not going to try to provoke and make relationships unless it's super, super apparent to the world or super apparent to me. It's affecting others in a dangerous way. You don't want to, I try to, unless it's that extreme, I try to smooth out the edges, and I try not to take stuff that person. Again, as you grow older, yada, yada, yada. Bottom line, after this exorbitant amount of time of me just blabbering about toxic friendships, about internet trolls being toxic, about the internet being toxic, find it. Understand social media and the internet is not real life. You see somebody on the internet and they start blasting people. They're blasting people because they have that low self-esteem and they don't give two shits, or they give a shit, or they don't give a shit, or they're so pitiful and unwilling to see everything around them. Are they even human to a point? You don't know who's your comments and stuff like that. I will say one thing. The people that, if the select few that talk the same mess to a person's face standing in front of them with eye contact at a measurable, respectful distance and say it, the mind is psychic. I'm out. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe and leave a comment. You can hear me on all major platforms and socials under the Mind of Psychic podcast. See you next time.